It's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, and you're going to stand in front of 50 people in 1 hour and try to pick the 12 that'll vote for your client. You starting to feel the knots in your stomach? Well, this is the third and final podcast on the last trial voir dire that I conducted. So it's the day before trial. You're getting nervous because you're going to stand up the next morning and pick this jury. And I like to say, I've talked to you about having a vocabulary list and how important that is, but I also think it's important for you to identify who your ideal jurors are. And a lot of people don't spend enough time doing that. So let's talk about who Susan and I decided were our ideal jurors for this case. Well, let's see what kind of case it is. It is age and perceived disability claim. And so obviously, or maybe not so obviously, I believe that people who suffer from a disability or who are married to, kin to, related to, and live with people who suffer from disabilities are more empathetic and understanding towards people with disabilities. So I just throw that out there for you to think about. And then age. I don't believe that anybody, and I shouldn't paint with this broad a brush, but most people under 30 are not really able to relate to an age discrimination claim. The comments that I get from them mostly are, just go get another job. I mean, to them, a job is just walk down the street to the next burger joint and there you go. And I don't mean to say that all young people work in burger joints. What I mean is that their perception of the ease with which a person in his 50s can get reemployed is a bit skewed. So I've got those two factors, and my guy is a man. So do you think that I want women or men on the jury? Usually I have an opinion about that, but in this particular case, I was gender neutral. I didn't believe that gender was going to really have a factor, and so I didn't really consider that. And then what else am I looking for in an ideal juror? Probably somebody who's not in management, because management of major corporations has a particular mindset. So I'm always looking to strike the managers if I can. I'm not really interested in HR directors, and so I'm looking to strike them. But this is about who do I want. I think I want a man over 45 or a woman over 45 who has experienced some suffering in their life and maybe had a period of difficulty. And that's about what I identified. So I look at the seating chart and I look at the juror information sheets that we got the morning of trial, and I start making a ideal juror list. And on my ideal juror list, I wrote down number 5, number 8, number 16, number 14, 19, 20, 22, 26, 27, 29, 30, 31. And the only one that I didn't get on the jury was number 14 because they struck her for cause. So our jury consisted of 5, a man over 45, not a manager. Unfortunately, he was married to an HR director, so I had some question about him. Number 8, a man over 45. Number 14 was stricken. Number 16, I was neutral about. No, I had 16 on my desired list, and she was on the jury, a female over 45. 18, a man over 45. 19 and 20, a man and a woman over 45. 22, a woman who only had a ninth grade education, over 45. Number 26, man over 45. 27, female, probably right at 40 to 45. Number 29, who I thought had potential to be the foreman. He had a well-trimmed beard, obviously 45 to 50. Number 30, female over 45. Number 31, male over 45. And then I didn't mark 33. He was probably under 45, and he was our alternate. And I had picked out a particular juror to be the foreman, and I was wrong. I picked somebody on the back row that I thought was very assertive and well-spoken, but the guy sitting literally right in front of me on the first row, number 5, was nominated and elected as the foreman. And he's very articulate and well-spoken as well. So there's the jury. Now, how did we build a tribe? One of the first things I always want to know about a jury is what their primary emotion is, because I can tell you that the emotion you live with the most in your life visits and expresses itself the most in your life. And I'll explain that some in another podcast. But I also ask a question that Susan Hutchinson came out with, and that's, what are you passionate about? And I think I talked about this in the very first episode, where number 3 told me that it was none of my business and he hated the question and wouldn't answer it. But I didn't explain why we're asking about what are you passionate about. Well, let's think about it. Are you passionate about sports? If a person volunteers, I'm passionate about sports. Okay, what does that tell you about the person? It tells you they like competition. It tells you they like teamwork. Maybe tells you that they were an athlete. Maybe not all athletes. Not everybody that likes sports was an athlete, so I don't mean to paint with too broad a brush. But those are sort of some assumptions I make about that. But what do you think about a person that says, I'm passionate about my family, my faith, and my job? Not necessarily in that order, because we had several people say something to that effect. They're passionate about God or religion. They put that first, then their family, then their job. Well, that sounds like my client. Maybe those are kind of people that I want, people that are willing to admit that they're passionate about faith, family, and occupation. We had some interesting comments. And the thing that I wrote about in my book, and that I really want to stress here, is that voir dire is not only a series of permissions where you gain the permission of the listener, i.e. the juror, to give you the information that you're seeking, but it's also a reactionary event where you may have been intending to go left, but the jury is asking you to turn right. And I think you have to be able to adapt and take that right turn with the jury and not steer them off the cliff, because if the jury's telling you we want to go right and you tell them we're going left anyway, they feel manipulated, they feel cheated, and to a certain extent, depending on what the issue you're talking about is, they could feel betrayed. So you got to be flexible and willing to go with the jury. By the time we got to the back row, there was 4 rows, so you can picture this. We had a juror that talked about, he used the word career. And I just asked him to follow it up. Why are you passionate about your career? Instead of, why did you not say job? And he said, well, there's a difference in a job and a career. A career is something that I love. A job is just some work that I do to get paid for to make ends meet. But a career, while it is a job, I get paid. It is something that I really enjoy, and it is a part of my identity. And so you need to remember that people that are passionate about their career will be passionate about your client's career, perhaps. And that turned out to be so. So when I get that pivot point and a man says he's passionate about his career, I open it up, and I'm going to come back where, you don't have to just keep going down the line and asking what you're passionate about. You can stop, take a right turn, and talk about what does career mean to any of the rest of you. And so that's what I did. I checked in with the group to find out what their relationship to a career was, and I also found out some interesting answers. It was no surprise to me that the people that talked passionately about their career were over 45. The people who didn't have much to say about a career were younger people, or angry people, or people who were otherwise disinterested in what we were doing. So once I talked about the career and anybody's relationship to it that wanted to, I went back and finished up what everybody else was passionate about. And it takes a while. I mean, you got to remember I got 50 jurors in this panel, and asking them what they're passionate about and asking maybe a follow-up question here and there takes a bit of time. So we finished with 50, and we found out what they're passionate about. Now, some people said what he said. Well, if your answer is what he said, how passionate are you about it? I don't care if the person said exactly what you would say. If you're passionate about it, you want your opportunity to say it too. And so I always am leery about the people who just latch on for convenience. I don't really have an answer, but that one sounds good, so that's the one I'm going to go with. What makes you think that person won't do that when they get back in the jury room? They don't have an opinion. They don't have any dog in this hunt. They just want to go home. And the first person to say something that makes some sense to them, they latch onto it. Is that the kind of juror you want on your jury? Not me. I want people that are passionate and willing to stand behind their faith and their values and what they believe in. So just note to self. What else did I like about this jury? Well, it turned out we had 5 women, 7 men, and the alternate was a male. So we're almost split 6 and 6. It was 5-7. But I told you early on that I didn't think gender would have any impact on this particular jury and the issues that we were going to decide. And so you start to make connections with jurors. I felt really connected to juror number 29, and I tried not to talk to him too much because it was going to be obvious to the other side. But he enjoyed laughter. He was a happy juror. He was eager to talk if I called on him, but not obnoxious about volunteering like juror number 50 was. I also started forming a relationship with number 26. And you say, what are you talking about? You formed a relationship, a connection. I could tell that we had things in common. This juror could understand what I was saying. This juror was connecting with the questions that I was asking, as opposed to number 3, who was totally disconnected and didn't care. Juror 26 and 29 were totally connected and did care. And so, do you want jurors that don't care and are disconnected on your jury? Or do you want those that are showing you that they care and are attentive? You know the answer to that. I also want to point out that it's important for you to understand who you want on this jury, because they may have things that are in common traits, common values, common character traits with your client that you don't have to bring out in voir dire because they're obvious. Do you think I have to tell all the 45-year-olds and older that my client's 53? No, they can look at him and tell. Do you think I have to tell the people who are passionate about their career that my client is passionate about his career? No, they're going to find that out in the trial. Now, do you think a person who cares nothing about a career is going to care if your client was passionate about his career? I don't think they will. And so I want people that are like my client. And why do I want that? Because people who are like my client have had some of the similar experiences probably that my client has had. People that are passionate about their family and their career can relate and become empathetic with a man who is passionate about his family and his career. And so I'm making this list of common connections. I'm making this list of jurors that would be my ideal juror. And so what is my ideal juror? My ideal juror is a salesman over 50 who has worked in the same occupation and trade for years, who understands that sales ebb and flow, and has perhaps suffered some indignancy at the hands of management in his job over his career. Why do I care about that? Because I was just describing my client. And I want as many people who can relate to and be familiar with the issues that my client was confronted with on this jury as possible. Well, you say not everybody's going to be that way. That's right. Not everybody's a salesman. Not everybody's selling construction equipment. But it doesn't matter what your career is. People who cherish and value and are passionate about their career can respect other people who have a different career. But they get it. When you're doing something you love, when you're doing what you know you're supposed to be doing, when you're doing your calling, you respect and understand other people who have similar experiences, that they're right where they're supposed to be and they're doing their calling, their careers, their calling. And so we build a tribe around these concepts. Do you think it's okay to lie to your employee and give them false reasons for termination? People that cherish and are passionate about their career don't think so, because you're tinkering with their life. Do you think that it's fair to terminate an employee and then cover up the reasons? Well, people who are passionate about their career don't believe in cover-ups. They believe if you have a legitimate reason, you just state it and you deal with the consequences. But a cover-up indicates an ill motive, and that you perhaps did something wrong is the reason you have to cover it up. I want to wrap up this podcast by telling you that the little lady that sat on the front row of our jury, she was juror number 20, wore a mask every day. You could tell by their eyes over the mask that she was smiling every morning. The judge had admonished the jury not to speak to the lawyers, and you could understand if we didn't speak to you and all that stuff that you're familiar with. But this juror every morning would walk in, and before she would sit down, she would give us the biggest good morning, hello, how are you doing today? And instead of directing it just at me, I was actually at the counsel table where I was sitting. She was right next to me, so I was the closest person in the courtroom to her. But she wasn't necessarily saying it to me. She was saying it to the entire room. And I think she noticed that everybody didn't reply. When a juror stands up every morning and says, good morning, I think they notice when you don't say good morning back. I don't know. But let me ask you this. Do you believe number 20 is a positive person or a negative person? You think number 3 would have come in every morning and said good morning to anybody? The answer is no, he would not. And the fact that you could see the smile in number 20's eyes, and the fact that you could hear the timbre of her voice every morning as she wished us all a good morning, told me that she was engaged, she was connected, she was happy to be there. And happy jurors make happy verdicts. So good luck to all of you, and good verdicts to all.